I'm Steve Bunt in conversation with George Groves talking about the greatest heavyweight fights of the century. George, some people say that Tyson Fury against Oleksandr Usyk is the fight of the century. It's 24 years into the new century. So if I ask you just quickly, without prepping, what have been the great heavyweight fights of this century?
Yeah, this century, Steve. So I think 2003 was Tyson versus Lennox Lewis.
With the police in the middle, unbelievable, stop the world fight.
Yeah, and it might not necessarily, Tyson might not necessarily be the number 2 at the time. Lennox, I think, was definitely the number 1. But that was a fight that felt like we'd waited a long time for. There was a lot of excitement around it. Tyson passed his best, but it sort of got himself into...
Still Tyson. Still Mike Tyson, George.
Absolutely. That's probably what starts us off. There's been a couple of shocks, haven't there, Steve? So we've got Lennox getting beat by Hasim Rahman.
Which was this century.
It must be this century, surely.
It was this century.
He avenges that loss, doesn't he?
This century.
This century. In his next fight, but that was a shocker. Corey Sanders.
Just for knocking out Vladimir Klitschko. I'd forgotten Hasim Rahman and Lennox Lewis. I just assumed that was in the 90s. It wasn't. That was in 2000 or 2001.
Yeah. You know, I've got...
We're not even going to get to 2010 like
well,
this.
Sorry, but no, we're trying to bring it a bit more recent. 2 Brits who are in sort of historic fights, I think, just for the drama, is Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko. Yeah. Both have to get up off the floor.
Yeah.
Joshua wins by knockout.
80,000.
Exactly. And then you've got Tyson Fury against Wilder, the number 3. When both have to get off the floor in that fight as well.
What about Tyson Fury against Vladimir Klitschko? 50,000 people in Dusseldorf. Well, he's a massive underdog.
Massive
Not
underdog.
a great fight, but hey-ho.
Yeah. And massive achievement, probably because it felt like a lot of people were excited about it, but no one really bought into it. So it kind of went under the radar and he shocked a lot of people. And then obviously, because he doesn't fight and defend the belts after... That one's there. But for me, obviously, a personal recollection will be when David Haye, a stablemate of mine, goes to Germany to take on the giant Nikolai Valuev.
Yes.
Out in Nuremberg. I fought on the undercard that night, Steve.
What a night that was.
And I'm ringside for that one.
7'1".
Yeah.
Come on, son.
A monster. And he had to stick to his game plan. And he gets a tight points win. So that was a brilliant. That's personal reasons. That's up there.
Well, how about also David Haye against Vladimir Klitschko, the fight that was on off. I know it was a washout in every which way because it was a torrential rain and all the seats got basically washed away. So it was chaos on the night. It wasn't a great spectacle. David had an injured toe, as you remember. But it was an event, George, like 70,000 people in Hamburg or wherever it was. That was a massive event as well, as a fight.
Absolutely. Huge. Klitschko was a huge name at the time, definitely in Germany. And, he got himself in fantastic shape for that fight because he was threatened by Haye. Yeah. Haye was flat that night. He didn't perform. But, that was a fight that it didn't quite live up to expectation, but we were all super excited beforehand.
Here's one. The rematch didn't maybe live up to expectation, but the original fight did. Madison Square Garden, June the 1st, 2019. Andy Ruiz, late replacement, fighting Anthony Joshua.
Huge shock.
Great fight as well.
Great fight. Ruiz gets up off the floor, doesn't he? I was there that night as well, Steve. Gets up off the floor. Nothing to lose at that point as he lets his hands go, catches Joshua, and then you think Joshua's has he ridden the wave, has he got through this sticky moment? But then Ruiz ups the levels again, go through the gears, and then gets an emphatic win. Maybe an even bigger upset than Rahman Lewis, which was
a bigger upset in some ways than Corey Sanders and Vladimir.
Yeah.
I tell you what you couldn't do. You couldn't do a top 5 here, could you?
No,
you could. It would take you about 2 hours.
Yeah, top 5 of heavyweights. It depends which way angle. If you're gonna try and just go on the fight, or you're gonna go on the hype, or you're gonna go on the names.
I do a bit of everything. I do a bit of the fact that there were 70,000 people there. That they're like for Lewis and Tyson, the police were in the middle of the ring and all of that. So I do a bit of a roll of everything really.
Yeah, Lewis Tyson's in there for me. We'll put that in at 5. It's just 2 mega heavyweight names, isn't it? Like, you've got the only level above that is, Ali Fraser and maybe Ali Foreman. But
It's that kind of game.
you're there, yeah. So that goes in. For the drama, I'm putting in Joshua Klitschko, because Klitschko really wound back the years. Is that the expression I'm looking for? Reinvented himself. Yeah, turn back the clock. He thought he was finished, washed up. Injuries had got to him, but he didn't. He knuckled down. He got himself in great shape, had a great game plan, and took on at the time what felt like the invincible Anthony Joshua. Gets up off the floor, drops Joshua. So much drama in Wembley Stadium. Mega fight. So that goes in next. Also, one of my earliest memories of watching pro boxing and getting up in the middle of the night to watch it is Lennox v Vitaly Klitschko. It's Lennox's last fight. Klitschko goes in late, doesn't he? He's a late sub.
Kirk Johnson, the Canadian.
That's it, and he gets stopped on a cut.
Cut's unbelievable.
Yeah, but that had drama because it felt like Lewis was asleep at the wheel a little bit there, and he had to try and go through the gears and maybe even fortunate. And was a sigh of relief when the fight was stopped on cuts.
So what's your number 2, George?
Number 2.
You backed yourself into a good corner here, son. You better have something to get out of this corner.
Yeah, number 2, Wilder Fury 3.
Yeah.
Because it is a trilogy. We don't get that, we're going back in. We're going back to Ali Fraser again, talking about trilogies.
We're walking in history.
Yes.
So what's your number 1?
And then number 1... Help me, Steve.
I'm not going to help you. You've used 4 of my number 1s already. All 4 of those are going to be my number 1. I was going to help you out with one of them.
Yeah.
I think it's interchangeable.
Yeah, they are interchangeable. There we go. Who have I missed? I'm going in. I'm stealing it with personal preference. Hay beats the giant Nikolai Valuev. I was there. I was ringside that night.
You're on the undercard. What's that to do?
I'll have that one. That's my favourite heavyweight moment.
You know what, George? I thought I might be putting you under pressure. Little did I know that we were going to wander. We could have done 5 each decade of the new century. George Groves with me, Steve Bunce, talking all things fight of the century.